Wardy here, and finally, for the first time since the All-Star break has concluded, we have ourselves a Metropolitan victory to break down as the Mets take down the Cincinnati Reds today here on this fine Sunday by a final score of 3-2. So we're going to break down all the key takeaways, the positives, certainly some negatives in this one for sure, as this was far from the prettiest baseball game that you'll find your New York Metropolitans playing. However, after a horrendous Game 2 and series defeat yesterday on David Wright's big day, the Mets are able to bounce back in a big way today by scrambling and coming together here after being down early by 1 or 2 runs there. And it's fitting that the team that had the lead in every single game of this series ultimately lost in the end. Some reverse psychology going on, but either way, it goes in the Mets' favor, everybody. So spam those W's in the live chat right now. That is what your guy Wardy wants to see. I want to see them spam right here, not only in the live chat, but to our replay viewers. Let us know your key takeaways and thoughts from everything that we're about to break down throughout the course of the entire ball game, innings 1 through 9. We're going to go through the highs, the lows, and everything in between. The key standouts headline by David Pearson working some Houdini magic today. Listen, how this ball game started. Bases juice in the first, bases juice in the second. I'm left wondering and thinking, just like every other Mets fan, oh my God, is David Pearson going to have a clunker today? The last thing the Mets need when they're already facing a dominant southpaw there against the Reds as is. So thankfully, Pearson gave the Mets what was a fantastic outing in the end. And offensively, while there wasn't a whole lot to show in the day that Pete Alonso did not start today's game, because for those that are wondering, Alonso came in the 7th inning there after initially coming off the bench because he's dealing with a bit of a bruise on his hand there. Had him day-to-day with a hand contusion per Carlos Mendoza pregame, but Alonso keeping this streak alive, currently has the longest active streak of Ironman for the New York Mets, right around 350 games or so. I know that's not entirely accurate. It's in that range. I'm going to double check throughout the show for you guys, but we have a lot to break down in this one, along with getting your comments, questions, and concerns, all that we have to break down from this key 3-2 victory and our latest post-game show here presented by our amazing sponsors at SeatGeek. If you guys don't know SeatGeek, you know them now. Make sure you head over and utilize our promo code WARDY10, link down below in the description. That way you two guys will get, yes, 10% off your next ticket purchase. Whether it's Mets tickets, concert show tickets, comedy show tickets, you name it, SeatGeek, our amazing friends here on the platform, have you covered, as well as our great friends that many of you guys know well by now at BetUS. Please make sure you bet responsibly should you get involved with BetUS for all of your sports betting needs or casino needs. But should you have interest, head over to betus.com.pa today and utilize our promo code YouTube150. That is YouTube150, because you're going to get a 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit there, everybody. And as you guys can see right here, I want to hear from you guys. How would you grade these first 2 draft picks for the Mets in the draft over the past week here? I personally went with a grade a B, as you guys can see from this BetUS graphic, but I'm curious if you guys think it is deserving of an A grade, a C grade, a D grade, or somehow, someway an F grade between Mitch Voigt there and Antonio Jimenez. So please let me know all your thoughts there in the live chat, as well in the comments down below regarding them. But again, guys, when it comes to picks, props, plays regarding the Mets, or all things sports, you name it, our great friends at BetUS will always have you covered there, everybody. But let's see who's in the live chat. Let's break it down, how we're feeling on this fine Sunday evening. Finally, some positive Metropolitan baseball to break down, as I mentioned, especially as we take a look at how the pitching went in this one, guys. Again, David Peterson was in a groove. He was doing exactly what you need Pearson to do today, going 6 rock-solid innings, allowing 0 earned run baseball, because he gave up 1 run, but that was bad thanks to some bad fundies and really not so much his fault. Brosman shuts down the door. Reed Garrett again didn't have his sharpest outing, but that was more so Edwin Diaz having a bit of a mess there as he came in for Reed Garrett in the 8th inning, and then Ryan Stank shuts down the door there, gets a save in the 9th inning. Yes, I was shaking my boots like each and every one of you that you brought in Edwin Diaz to get the final out of the inning there in the 8th inning. All right, it takes way too much more effort than what you're otherwise hoping as he goes on to hit the batter that ties the ball game 2-2 in the 9th, in the 8th. Then in the bottom of that same inning, we would see the Mets rally back and ultimately get the lead and get the victory in this ball game. But Ryan Stank coming in, he had himself a fantastic 9th inning. We're going to expand on the key takeaways from everything on the pitching end and on the offensive end. This is how the ball game ended, everybody. As you guys can see, Brandon Nimmo was productive. And at first, I love the Mets line because I'm saying to myself, oh, Nimmo back in leadoff. Vientos back in the 5 spot. I'm surprised that Mendoza actually didn't flip-flop the two while facing the South southpaw today for the Reds. So I was encouraged by that initially, but then once I realized that Vientos initially got the start at first base before moving over there later on the ball game for Alonso, I was like, I'm sorry, why isn't Alonso in this ball game? Then we got the clarity that he had the hand contusion, day-to-day, yada yada. He finished this ball game. Pete is more than fine. So we're going to get into what I loved about Jeff McHits today, as well as Terrence, who looked not only strong with the bat today, but give credit's due. Terrence may have drove everyone, their mother, crazy, including yours truly yesterday, but he made up for it big time today with a huge, nice throw out there to second base with Lindor getting the tag on the ass. They got the job done there. Tyrone Taylor was productive, and Luis Angel Acuna, everybody. There are no greater standouts, in my opinion, offensively today than what Luis Angel Acuna did for this New York Metropolitan squad. In case you guys are wondering just how crazy things have been with Acuna as of late, this was his first extra base hit at the Major League level since May 2nd. Mind you, Acuna won National League Rookie of the Month for the month of April. So literally since Buddy has won Rookie of the Month, he's fell off the face of the earth when it came to really any offensive productivity. But thankfully, Acuna clutched up big time and helped the Mets get on to their back to winning ways. And this one, everybody. Thank you guys again for the donation. Billy Dottie with $5. Still don't trust this team until I see what happens at the deadline. Stearns has a lot of work to do by the next 2 weeks. All eyes on the deadline. That is an understatement, my friend. And I'm going to be recording a big trade deadline discussion that'll be dropping either later on tomorrow for you guys or on Thursday on the Mets off day with a very special guest I think you guys are going to enjoy after we break down the ball game. But as you guys see in the live chat, and it's pinned down below to our people that watch us on replay in the description, guys, check out the Wardy Day tickets that are still available. We sell, if I'm not mistaken, have north of 10 left right now. I just saw 2 more purchases over the past day, so I don't know if we're at 10 or at 8, but we do still have a couple tickets left for Wardy Day, August 1st, to hang out with your guy Wardy throughout the entire ball game between the Mets and the Giants. It's fireworks night. It's the day after the MLB trade deadline. We're probably going to be going live in our exclusive left field lounge section just for us, no other fans, just your guy Wardy and our group that we're going to be bringing in there. We're going to be doing a live show. We're going to get pregame on-field access. We're going to be giving you guys a $18 drink voucher and a whole lot of other fun perks. So I hope to see you guys there at Wardy Day, less than 2 weeks away. Cannot wait to see, hopefully, the Mets get a bigger victory than what was a 3-2 big win today. And I think we can all agree. The win was nice, but we want to see this team get on a roll. And hopefully today start the beginning of something special with this ball club. We're already at right around 50 in the show. If you guys could hit that like and subscribe on that, would mean a lot to roughly 200 concurrent viewers. Again, thank you guys so much for spending some of your Sunday with your guy Wardy here. But this ball game began there in the first because it ain't going to begin in the ninth. And in the first inning, everybody, we saw ourselves an early 1-0 lead for Cincinnati. Why? Because David Pearson's looking like batting practice early. Kind of concerning. I was really concerned, right? TJ Friedel reaches base right away because Luis Angel Acuna has an error. Not what he wants to see from Acuna getting the start at second base today against the southpaw there in Abbott. And I told myself, I'm like, listen, if Acuna is going to be a defensive liability today, Buddy has to do something with the bat at minimum. Newsflash, he did. And he actually did probably the most prominent thing with a bat that he's done since May 2nd. So, not going to complain there. Matt McClain then gets on with a single. Heavy fastball hitter. Buddy is hitting really well with fastballs, just like the rest of this Reds team, but in a very Tyrone Taylor fashion. When looking at off-speed and breaking pitches, he has a right around a 500 OPS. He is horrendous otherwise. But Matt McClain got on yet again after he torched the Mets yesterday. And yeah, torched the Mets Game 1, as Alex Carrillo came in the ballgame for Sean Manaea. And Ellie De La Cruz, who was also electrifying, kickstarts the ballgame with an RBI single. So right away, it is 1-0 Cincinnati. And then Austin Hayes thankfully grounds into a double play. And Spencer Steer lines out, but not before the Reds are quickly up 1-0. In the bottom of the first, we see Abbott get to work, and he goes 1-2-3 on this Mets offense from Nimmo to Lindor to Soto. It's an easy 1-2-3 against all those lefty bats. In the top of the second, we see with 2 outs there, Santiago Espinal, former Toronto Blue Jays legend, if you know, you know, gets on with a single, and then Connor Joe gets on with a walk, former Padre this season, as well as Pittsburgh Pirate. And I know that Connor Joe probably wanted to stay with the Padres longer than he did, considering he grew up a Padres fan. But Joe with a walk, and then a TJ Friedel hit by pitch, second straight inning, where David Pearson's working with a bases juice situation for the most part. And for a second straight inning, we see him work out of it. it. Or I apologize. He didn't actually have bases juice in the first. It was runners on the corners, and there was runners on first and second. But it felt like bases juice because there was a lot more runners than we were expecting to see actually reach base in the first against Mr. David Pearson. And then you have bases loaded there in the second, and Matt McLain strikes out Sweeney. And then how does Matt McLain strike out Sweeney? By doing what he's done best all year long, and that's not hitting a slider to save his life. Mr. Peterson carves him up big time, goes all off speed, all breaking pitch, and it gets the job done. And the bottom of that same inning, Mark Vientos leads things off with a single there to right center. Then McNeil there we would see out on a sac bunt, but that gets the runner over to second base and Vientos. And then a Terens pop out and a Brett Beatty strikeout later, and nothing else happens. Mets still down by 1. As we then get to the third, everybody, we see ourselves a 1-2-3 inning there for Mr. David Pearson. Pearson would get a 1-2-3 from Ellie De La Cruz to Austin Hayes to Spencer Steer, then getting it set for the bottom of the third where Tyrone Taylor would lead things off there with a single. Then Acuna with the perfect sac bunt to get him to second base. Then Brandon Nimmo, more like Brandon Nimmo, Brandon in the leadoff spot today, ripping himself a nice base knock on pitch number 8. It grinded out at bat on a curveball down just out of the zone, but Nimmo goes out and he gets it. He goes fishing and he searched and he found himself a run scored via Tyrone Taylor here. Tied ball game, 1-1 everybody. So the Mets are finally getting something cooking after initially being down in this one. And again, for the third consecutive game and for all games in this series, whoever started the ball game with a lead ultimately lost in the end. So just because you started hot ain't always going to mean that you're going to end hot. And that was the case for the Reds today and how they fared towards the end. In the top of the fourth, we see a 1-2-3 for Pearson, carving up Stevenson, Marte, and Santiago Espinal. As we then get to the bottom of the fourth, it's a 1-2-3 for Abbott, who again entered this game with a just over 2 ERA. He's been nasty this year, Mr. Abbott, for the Reds. From Vientos to McNeil to Terens, it's 1-2-3. And the fifth, Connor Joe there with a single, and then Matt McLain is called out on strikes after a big double play for TJ Friedel, and that does it for the inning. Shout out to David Pearson yet again with another fine inning to work. At the bottom of that same inning, we see Brett the Hitman rip himself a leadoff single. Then Tyrone Taylor is called out on strikes, setting the stage for Brett Beatty, who steals his 5th bag of the year. And Luis Angel Acuna drives him in, everybody. This is what I'm talking about. Proactive base running, just like what we saw in the early aspects of this series as well, with a great hit and run. You know, we saw, I'm trying to think, was it Nimmo that stole second base in game 1 of this series, and then that run came in to score? It might have been. There's been some solid base running by the Mets as of late, with their situational running leading to a run scoring shortly after. And this happened again today as Acuna ripped that double there to the left side, his 7th of the season, and the first time he hit an extra base hit in multiple months, everybody. And that gives the Mets, at the time at least, a 2-1 lead. Shout out to Acuna for getting all of that one, everybody. Luis Angel is not known for his offense, but man, oh man, did he destroy that baseball. 108 miles per hour there off the bat of Acuna facing Mr. Abbott, and that puts the Mets up by 1 as we get set for the 6th. And the 6th and the final inning of work for David Pearson today, he would shut down the door on Ellie De La Cruz, Austin Hayes, and strike out Spencer Steer. Folks, David Pearson's final line again is as follows. He finishes his ball game with 6 innings of 4 hit, 1 unearned run, 0 earned run, 1 walk, 4 strikeout ball. Without a doubt, David Pearson is getting a good grade from your guy Wardy. But before I spoil and tell you my grade, let me tell you first a bit more about David's final line today, because he had that four-seam fastball topping out 29% of the time, topping out 93 on the velo, and sitting right around 92. The slider they threw 22% of the time, topping out 85, sitting 84. The sink piece he threw 22% of the time, topped out 93, sat 91. The changeup 16% of the time, topped out 87, sat 86, 85. And the curveball at 12%, topped out 81, and sat right around 79, everybody. David Pearson just won 6 scoreless. Yeah, if you don't think I'm going to give him a good grade, I got a bridge to sell you, folks. Without further ado, my David Pearson grade is as follows. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. David Pearson was so damn impressive for Wardy today. He gets an easy 7.5 out of 10. Very close to an 8 grade. And I think you can make a rightful argument for an 8 grade, but I'm going to be slightly conservative only because of the fact that Pearson still had those early jams, but the fact they got out of it is what made it all the more impressive. I think anywhere from 7.5 to 8.5 is very justified. I'm not going to go 9 because, again, 9 and 10 grades are more for guys that go deeper, going for, complete game shutouts, no-nos, things of that nature. But that's a high grade. And I'm really, really happy to see what David Pearson was able to do. So I'm going 7.5. I want to know how you guys feel about that. Actually, I think a lot of you guys agree. Between 7 to 8 is kind of what the universal grade is that we're getting in the chat right now from all you guys. So I'd love to see that. Let's see. I have your can't stand you NYC. Never say a word. We don't like nonsense. What are we talking about, Goomba, in the chat? Goomba, what happened? Goomba, I'm sorry. What happened in the chat? Was someone causing havoc? Do we got to kick him? All I know is that if Goomba's complaining about something, it's probably for good reason, because Goomba's an OG follower here. I know him very well. Let's see here. Who gets a 9? No one gets a 9 right now. A 9 grade, for example. Okay, I think a good example of a 9 grade for me, for a starter, would be a guy going 8 shutty. Like, that's a 9 grade, for sure. If you go 8 shutty, that's a 9 grade. I think that's an easy one. A 10 grade is a complete game shutout, a no-no, and that's about it. You know, I can't really think of anything else that would warrant a 10 grade. If you guys can figure one out, you guys let me know in the chat and let me know on replay as well, everybody. I greatly do appreciate that. But that's what I have for the grade on the pitching end for the starter. But let's talk a little bit more now on the bullpen, because the bullpen looked really, really good as well, everybody. Let's get into this. As we continued on in the bottom of the 6th, the Mets would try to get something cooking. They get McNeil on with a 2-out walk, so more like Jeff McWalks. Then we see Torrens with a 2-out single. Torrens had more hits, I think, than any other Mets batter in this series, if I'm not mistaken. Now, he had the big defensive blunder there, throwing to first when no one was there yesterday, but today made up for it big time with a huge tag for this for the throw him out with Lindor later on in this ball game. As we then get to the 7th inning, guys, here comes Huascar Brosman, and Alonso comes in as well to come in for Vientos at first base, and then Alonso would get at least one at bat that we would see. Noelvi Marte would get on with a 1-out single. That's all she wrote, though, thankfully, because Noelvi Marte then is caught stealing second base. That does it for the inning. You guys see in the highlights beside me, if I'm not mistaken, great throw and an even better tag by Lindor, smacking it right on the tuchus of Noelvi Marte, who I think is even funnier, the fact that they have Gavin Lux as the photo there that I'm looking at right now. But regardless, guys, that does it there for the top of the 7th. So we're about to get stretched out. We're about to get ready. Why? Because 7th inning stretch time, getting set for the bottom of the 7th, where the Mets are trying to get some offense going. And after Luis Angel Acuna, who gave the Mets their second run of the ball game, gets on with a 1-out walk, Brandon Nimmo flies out. And then Francisco Lindor. All we need from Lindor is maybe some productivity, maybe the bat off the effing shoulders. Instead, he flies out of Jake Fraley, and that does it there for the inning. On one hand, he did let the bat off the shoulders. On the other hand, he didn't do anything productive, so who really cares? And the 8th inning, Reed Garrett comes in, and Reed shuts down the door. I mean, at least you're hoping he's going to shut down the door, right? Because Reed didn't have the sharpest outing. And after 2 outs from Gavin Lux and TG Friedel, he allows a 2-out walk to Matt McLain. And as McLain then steals his 12th bag of the year, that would come after Edwin Diaz came in. Because, mind you, I understood what Carlos Mendoza was thinking here, and I'm not going to fault Mendy for it. I'm curious where you guys stand on this front, right? Because when you look at how this ball game was happening there in that inning, let's see. Wardy, you are honorary member of the tribe. I'm happy to hear that, Steve. But going back to Edwin Diaz, were any of you guys bothered when Edwin came in this ballgame? Because I wasn't. And I actually really liked the move by Mendoza. I said to myself, okay, yeah, why risk Reed Garrett getting in a jam here when it's a 1-run ball game? Why not bring in your Edwin Diaz, your star closer, for a potentially 4-out save? I didn't hate that move at all by Mendoza. So I'm not going to sit here and act like I did. And the reason why I'm emphasizing that I didn't hate that is because of what happened shortly after. Because after Mendy allows Edwin to come in for Reed Garrett to knock it out of his own mess, when mind you, Reed just need one more out, he then allows a stolen back from Matt McLain, and Ellie De La Cruz gets on with a walk. So the man that you were trying to attack there, you do nothing of. And then you allow a single to Austin effing Hayes, out of all people, to load the bases. And then first pitch, you throw to Spencer Steer, you drill his ass right in the elbow, which ties the ball game 2-2. Edwin just did not have it today. It was his second blown save of the season. Crazy to say that. He only has 2 blown saves this year. That just shows you how amazing Edwin Diaz has been. But this is at all a continuation, going back to the All-Star game, everybody. This is the second blown save Edwin Diaz has over this past week. One doesn't matter. One does. I get it. Cue the joke. Point is, though, Edwin wasn't the guy that we were hoping we were going to be getting from him today, but he thankfully bounced back big time. More so because Tyler Stevenson just can't hit a meatball if you threw it at him. It was a slider, middle, 90 right down the dick, and he swung right through it. I'm not saying it's an easy pitch to hit, but it could not have been more hun of a slider by Edwin Diaz, and still Tyler Stevenson swung right through it, thankfully. That's it for the inning. Still tied 2-2, and the Mets then gets the bottom of that 8th inning. In the bottom of the 8th inning, Juan Soto leads things off with a walk. Alonso's called out on strikes because he just did not take the bat off the shoulders, was not expecting a heater down the dick, and that's what happened. Jeff McNeil, more like Jeff McDoubles, because Jeff turns on one because Brent Suter is only going to thrive for so long. Suter's a great personality and a guy the Mets actually had interest in the past before he signed with his hometown team in the Cincinnati Reds. Suter, though, gives up the 8th double of the year there for Jeff McDoubles, and that gets him out of the ball game. Here comes the right-hander Tony Santillan, or however the hell you pronounce his last name, and then Terrence makes it 3-2 Mets. Shout out to Terrence, guys. Terrence goes opposite field and stays in the infield, but who has the heads-up base running absolutely bolting from third base, and the head slide, and he's safe. It's the one and only Juan Soto. That's who, everybody. That would be the Mets game-winning run. They get the 3-2 lead, and they go on to win this one 3-2. Here comes Ryan Stanek shining down the door. He gets a flat on Noelvi Marte. He gives up a single to Jake Fraley, and you're like, oh my God, no way. Please don't tell me we're blowing this right now. Then after the Fraley single, it's a ground out for Gavin Lux, and a pop out on TJ Friedel. Cue the fist up, baby. Ryan Stanek's hyped up. How can you not be? The Mets needed this one. They're back in the win column, and as I talk about the Mets back in the win column, everybody, as we take a quick look at the wild card standings, the Mets are still 2 games behind the Milwaukee Brewers, as Milwaukee won again today, if I'm not mistaken, 58-40 to the Mets of 56-44. The Padres are at 54-45, and then we have the Cubs, the Dodgers, and the Phillies as the 1, 2, 3 seeds out of the National League. The Reds are right behind the Padres at 52-48, 2.5 games out of that third wild card. The San Francisco Giants, who the Mets will be playing on the first ever official Wardy Day at Citi Field, that you guys can check out tickets linked in the live chat right now, and to our replay viewers in the comments down below. Please make sure to check it out. We still have north of 10 tickets available for anyone that has interest in hanging out with your guy Wardy at Citi Field on August 1st against the Giants. They're 52-48. The St. Louis Cardinals are 51-48. But I'm sorry, St. Louis, it is time for you to sell. You guys always do this every single year. Your fringe playoff teams by the deadline, you end up soft buying, and then you go absolutely nowhere. I'm not expecting this to be anything different. I don't know about you guys, but that's what I have to say about that. Let's see here. Arizona, 49-50, pretty much gearing up and getting ready for Eugenio Suarez, Merrill Kelly, and Zach Allen to be traded. And Jeff Passan just released the following, everybody. The new number 1 in our trade deadline rankings that drop tomorrow, Eugenio Suarez, is on an absolute heater right now. 4 home runs in the last 2 days, now up to 35 on the season, behind only Cal Riley and Aaron Judge in all of Major League Baseball. Eugenio Suarez can't be a New York Mets soon enough. And I say that knowing that the Mets are not necessarily the front runner for Suarez, as the Yankees feel like a far more likely destination between the two for said Gino. But Gino has 35 home runs already this year. I would love. I'm actually curious, how do you guys feel in regards to that, what I was just saying? You guys want some Eugenio Suarez? You got, out of all the guys that we broke down in our top 10 trade target video that you guys can check out that dropped a couple days ago, I'm curious which ones are most appealing to you and why. I would love to hear it, everybody. Not happening. Come back down to earth. Frank, I love you, Frank, but we don't need your constant comments in every video drop saying, you know, settle expectations, Mets fans. The Mets aren't going to do anything. I think any rational Mets fan knows very well not to get their hopes up at the deadline and expecting, you know, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, like we're just going to pick and choose all the guys we want. Stearns has to go out and prove that they're going to be adding guys of significance. Until they do that, your guess is as good as mine as to what they're actually going to do. We have assumptions, we have educated belief based on latest reporting, but that doesn't necessarily guarantee anything either. So for anyone that is trying to figure out what their thought process should be heading into the trade deadline, let me enlighten you, because it's as follows. What your thought process should be heading into the trade deadline, with the assumption that the Mets did not do any trades of significance prior to that point, is that you should expect the Mets to be adding for immediate bullpen. You should expect expect the Mets to be very opportunistic for a starter and hopefully land a starter. And offensively, it is a complete toss-up as to what they would find themselves landing. They could land themselves someone very minuscule, or they could land themselves someone that we're not even talking about right now. But it suggests that, oh, the Mets are going to do nothing is silly. Even with David Stearns sitting on his hands, he still made moves last year, regardless of how much you guys love or hated them, and the Paul Blackburns for the rotation, and the Phil Matons and Ryan Staneks as they were added for the pen. And obviously, offensively, Jesse Winker. What do all those players really have in common now? None of them are feasible for the Mets at the moment. Jesse Winker can't stay healthy. Ryan Stank has been too Jekyll and Hyde, even with how good he looked today. Phil Maton isn't on the team anymore because he's batting practice and postseason play last year. And Paul Blackburn is in his, 10th rehab since landing with the Mets, going back to the second half of last season. I love David Stearns. There are a lot of things I like about David, but Buddy has been far from brilliant when looking at how these early acquisitions have fared for this club, going back to the trade deadline on from last year. That is why this is a big statement for the Mets to go out and do things of significance this year. Because if they do not go out and do this in significance, then we're going to have ourselves a problem, everybody. And thankfully, breaking news, the LA Angels, who the Mets kickstart a series against in their next series. That is, in fact, true. Even with that being the case, folks, with them playing the Angels next, we do also know that they have the Angels to thank for today. The Angels beat the Philadelphia Phillies, meaning that the Mets are just a half game now out of first place. So in case you guys are wondering what's happening there you go. Let's see. Since May 1st, the Angels are 37-33. Yeah, the Angels have been just above 500. I mean, they're 48-50, but they've been a fringe 500 team for most of the season. It won't be the easiest matchup against them by any stretch, but you just have to hope you can go and win this series, unlike what you unfortunately weren't able to do here in this past series against the Cincinnati Reds. But a couple more things I want to touch on with you guys is as follows. For the bullpen today, I'm going to give them an easy grade. They gave up one total earned run, and they walked two. I'm going to give the bullpen, actually, funny enough, I'm going to give the bullpen the same grade today that I gave David Peterson. I'm going to go 7.5 out of 10. Maybe I should go more 7 because he allowed the earned run. You know what? I am going to go more 7 because it was only how many innings? It was only 4 innings of work. They allowed 1 earned run. I'm going to go 7 out of 10. I thought the bullpen was fine, did what they needed to do. Obviously, I wasn't happy to see Diaz not have his sharpest stuff out there, but you're not going to be your best every single time, and I'm not expecting that. As long as it didn't cost the Mets more than what it did today, that was my key takeaway, and thankfully, they held the fort down. So I'm going to go ahead with a solid 7 there on the bullpen grade, and offensively, everybody, this is how the ball game ended lineup-wise. So let's get into these key numbers and what you guys and gals need to know. Because on the offensive end, we can take a look at as follows, everybody. The Mets, BrandonNYM, 262 average, 788 OPS on the season, 1 for 4. Francisco Lindor, 0 for 4, 251 average, 761 OPS. Juan Soto, 0 for 3 with a run scored and a walk, 256 average, 895 OPS. Mark Vientos, 1 for 3, another productive day for Mark, 221 average, 627 OPS. Alonso 0 for 1, 275 average, 890 OPS. Big Neil 1 for 2 with the double, 254 average, 813 OPS. Terens 1 for 4, 220 average, 606 OPS. Beatty 1 for 4 with a run scored and a strikeout, 236 average, 711 OPS. Tyrone Taylor 1 for 4 with a run scored, 2 strikeouts, 211 average, 573 OPS, and Luis Angel Acuna 1 for 1 there with the double, the RBI, you'll love to see it, and the walk, 240 average, 579 OPS. The Mets out-hit the Reds. Actually, they had the same amount of hits as the Reds today, but there was a difference in there at 230, whereas the Mets are at 257. And that is really all you guys need to know from this one in its entirety. I mean, I think when we take a look at the series as a whole, there's a lot to forget about, and there's a lot to hope that the Mets can just get themselves out of their rut. When we take a look at the runner and scoring position approach for the Mets today, let's take a look at that and see how they fared. The Mets were not all that good. Again, more problems arise. The Mets, for those that don't know, were 1 for 10 with runners in scoring position, and their devastating loss to the Reds yesterday to drop the series, but most importantly, to do it on David Wright's day was all the more disgusting. They were 1 for 10 and left 11 on base. Today, the Mets weren't much better, but they batted 200, and batting the Mendoza line is all it took to beat the Reds in the series finale, as they went 2 for 10 with allowing 8 to be left on base. So that is what you had there from the Mets offensively, everybody, and pitching-wise. So now let's get into answering more of your comments, questions, and concerns and key takeaways, especially with the trade deadline right around the corner, everybody. I would love to hear all your thoughts in regards to what is happening, what the Mets may or may not be doing upcoming move-wise, as we have a lot of content that's going to continue to pump out there on that front. So make sure that you guys are on the lookout for. Yeah, the D-backs are not hard sellers yet, but they're currently in line to be sellers at this rate with the way that they continue to not be close to necessarily getting to that wild card spot with how deep the National League yet again is for what's been every single season since the expanded wild card happened from 2 to now 3 teams. So before we break down more of your comments and everything that you guys have to say, everybody, let's hear a quick word from your guy Wardy with our very special Wardy Day upcoming less than 2 weeks away. Listen up, everybody. It's Wardy here, and as you can see, we are at gorgeous Citi Field, and folks, you can get the ultimate, the prime experience with your guy Wardy at our first ever official Wardy Day. August 1st, Mets, San Francisco Giants there for the evening game. The day after the MLB trade deadline, you, your friends, your loved ones, select Mets fans will get the ultimate experience with your guy Wardy. Not only are we going to hang out at the ball game together, but folks, look at the seating. We're going to be live here in the left field lounge. You guys will be able to chop it up with your guy Wardy. We're going to be debating as to who's the best pitcher of the rotation outside of Kodai Senga. We're going to be talking about who's the next best prospect to get called up. How do we... Breaking news, everybody. We have breaking news on the live stream to share. Francisco El Troll Alvarez has officially been called back up by the New York Mets. Lefick will be off by, I think, 2 home runs now. Since I made it, he's already hit another 2 homers, so I apologize. But let's just talk for a minute here about Francisco Alvarez, guys. Now, as I said, the stats down below are inaccurate. Alvarez has now hit 11 home runs in his past 16 games since being sent down to AAA Syracuse. But what you guys are going to watch are a boatload of those home runs I've combined together from the past couple weeks since he has been sent down. So, what are we getting in El Troll returning back to this Metropolitan team? Great question you might have. And the simple response and answer to that is that the Mets are getting Francisco Alvarez back, a man who's worked a lot. What Alvarez has done in the minor leagues does not necessarily guarantee anything at the major league level. So I would like to preface this by saying that it is not a guarantee by any stretch that by Ali coming back up to the squad, that is immediately going to be changing anything for them. Now, he has to go out and prove it himself. We have seen the flashes of brilliance with Alvarez. We know the potential that this man has with the power, but it comes back to him staying true to himself and his game. If Alvarez goes back to being this slap hitter going only opposite field, then I think we could all point to one man and one man only, or two man, as a matter of fact, between Eric Chavez and Jeremy Barnes to blame in a large degree. Because Alvarez, what he has been able to do is a couple of things. And going back to some great articles in which he did a great one-on-one interview with Will Salmon of The Athletic over the past week, right before the All-Star break. And Alvarez was explaining how, he hasn't really spent any time thinking about, why he's being sent down versus he just knows he needs to work on his game. Like, he can't sit here and fixate on it. He can't get too emotional about it, or else he's not going to be able to develop and prosper the way he wants to as a young player. Really strong head on his shoulders for the young Alvarez at the young age of 23 right now. And I mean, when you hit 20 plus home runs and your age 21 rookie season, naturally you're going to set some lofty expectations for yourself. And I think that's been in part some of the larger issue with Alvarez. There's been these large expectations, a quick ego that's certainly been boasted and built up the past couple of years, but has kind of fluctuated due to those hand injuries each of the past 2 seasons in the first half, from rounding first base last year there at Dodger Stadium and hurting his thumb, to this year hurting that hamate bone right before the season began in spring training. Alvarez has not been able to get in a consistent groove with his game at all either, but to have Ali back is important because there's a couple of key things I want to make note of as to what he did differently on working on his game for the better that we've seen in the minor leagues. And one of the things that Alvarez has done greatly on working with his game is his defense. This was a big liability for him, everybody. And not only was Alvarez costing the Mets to a degree with his offense this season when he was out there, but defensively, he was no better. I mean, he was in, I believe, the bottom 8% in all Major League Baseball eligible catchers when looking at frame rate. His blocking was horrendous. He was having way too many pass balls happen. He was making lackadaisical throws, whether it was second or third at times. Like, you could clearly tell that Alvarez was feeling the pressure. And because Alvarez was feeling the pressure, we saw that, it was not necessarily making a diamond the way that we're hopefully going to get now after Alvarez has since been sent down, has completely made big adjustments. And the adjustments that Alvarez has made since being sent down to AAA are the following. One, he has really worked on that defensive game. He's in the north of the 100th percentile in frame rate among eligible catchers in all of the AAA minor leagues that we see in Alvarez's little stint. Very encouraging. We look at his blockability, pop-up time, throws a second. All these defensive metrics and things that he's worked on heavily in the past, he worked on and then some there in AAA. And who was working beside him throughout this entire process in Syracuse, everybody? Look no further than JP Arencibia. That is where that started, everybody. And that's big news in itself, because JP Arencibia wasn't necessarily the best catcher imaginable, but he was a major league catcher that was in the bigs for a hot minute and has since been named the Syracuse coach there for AAA. So there have been encouraging things, to say the least, in regards to Alvarez and what things have been going right with his development defensively down there. And then you add in the offense, and quite contrasting from Eric Chavez's, and for those who don't know, Eric Chavez is one of the Mets' main hitting coaches along with Jeremy Barnes. Eric said to Francisco Alvarez after his rookie breakout in 2023 with 20 plus home runs that it wasn't a good season and that there's a lot more work to do. Very contrasting to JP Arencibia saying how we're doing everything in our power to get Alvarez back to the 2023 Alvarez. Focus on the power. He has immense power. If it ain't broke, why fix it? Alvarez's entire game is built around power. The reason why the Mets signed him to an absurdly large IFA signing bonus from Venezuela as a 17-year-old at the time was in large part because of his uber athleticism and great power at the backstop position. Knowing that's an anomaly in the sense of how young he is, how much power he is, and how much he was already ready for the major leagues. That does not come all that often. When you have guys like Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander going out of your way to advocate for you to say, hey, I want this kid to catch me, future Hall of Famers, usually there's a good reason for that. So what has been the key factors behind Alvarez falling from being what was a really, really exciting, while raw, still very exciting 21-year-old? It has been the health with his hand the past 2 years and the lack of confidence that has currently hurt him in his game. Alvarez even spent this past offseason working in a hitting lab in Atlanta that G.D. Martinez recommended, going back to their time as teammates last season, but that only worked so much because Alvarez shortened his swing and we all liked it, but there was no power behind it, and he was constantly trying to hit for opposite field. So for all those reasons, everybody, Francisco Alvarez's game has and will continue to be built on power, the same way that Cal Riley's game is built on power, the same way when he's right, Adley Rutschman's game is built on power. You guys catch my drift here? Alvarez is far better suited being a 230 to 250 hitter, giving you 25 home runs a season, than being a 250 to 270 hitter, giving you a 700 OPS, barely, with what, 8 to 10 home runs? We all want the Alvarez that can provide as much oomph as possible. We don't need him to be the contact king. We have enough other batters in this lineup that can handle that workload greater than what Alvarez can. Go back to the game that made you as brilliant as you are, and what Alvarez is doing in the minor leagues. Well, yes, you have to take it with a grain of salt because at the end of the day, he's doing it in the minor leagues. That is true. But what is also true is that Alvarez is doing this knowing damn well that he is getting that power swing back. And this is not a joke. He's pulling the baseball more in the minor leagues. He's hitting for opposite field, but for power. He's going up the middle for power. He's destroying fastballs, meatballs, breaking balls, whatever meatballs your grandma's serving up for breakfast, lunch, dinner, you name it. He is going to be on a tear. And if Alvarez is at all hot like he has been in AAA and can continue that over to the major league level, then the Mets just add themselves some very sneaky oomph into their lineup that maybe you weren't otherwise thinking heading into now post All-Star break. So Francisco Alvarez, El Troll, welcome back to the Bigs, my friend. That is the breaking news on the Mets front. For those that are unaware, Francisco Alvarez back with this Mets team, and Alvy now has 11 home runs again in his 16 games of being in the minor leagues. When you put up home run numbers that absurd, you would have to be stupid not to call him back up. And thankfully, the Mets aren't that idiotic. They made the right move, and they brought El Troll back up to see what he can do back at the major league level. So that is what you guys got in Francisco Alvarez returning back to this New York Metropolitan team. I would love to hear all your thoughts on the case of Francisco Alvarez and everything in between that we broke down in this one, folks. But that is about going to do it for our live show. Let me get to a couple more comments before I get out of here. Zach Flaherty, the problem with players like Alvarez is swing adjustment. You only need one swing. The game is picking your pitches, not chasing weak contact. 100% true, Zach. I could not agree with you more there. Looking forward to Alvy's return. You and I both, JoJo. No doubt in my mind, Alvarez will be the Mets catcher daily. I mean, he's going to go back to being more of that guy for sure. Madeline, very happy with Alvarez returning. Alvarez is a lazy catcher, tries backhand pitches in the dirt instead of gaining his body, and he needs to not be lazy anymore, JTB. He wasn't always like that, though, is my point. He's fluctuated a lot with his defense since he got the call. So we'll see what he does, obviously, up here at the major league level. Because as I've reiterated once more before, I have all the people in the comments saying, oh, Wardy's so excited about a guy who's killing in the minor leagues, but that doesn't guarantee anything. No shit, Sherlock. I just said it verbatim. It doesn't guarantee anything. I completely understand that if Alvarez gets to the major league level and he doesn't find his swing again, it's another big problem. We'll have that conversation and we'll talk about what he's not doing right, where that confidence is lacking, and what the Mets and their hitting coaching staff and Eric Chavez and Jeremy Barnes continue to get wrong and try to get the best out of the young man's hitting philosophy. So as anywhere near Senga or any pitchers who throw dirt balls. While I understand that, Omar, I think you're losing sight of the fact that Senga's been heavily caught by Alvarez since he made his debut in 2023. If Alvarez can just get back to a guy that's competent in blocking baseballs, he's going to be fine. He just needs to be competent in that area the way that he unfortunately wasn't beforehand. Alvarez is literally eating too many meatballs, says JTB in the chat. That's funny. Let's see here. He is also 23. Most catchers don't. Exactly. For context, guys, Adley Rutschman hadn't even made his MLB debut yet at the current age Francisco Alvarez is, before people want to go to the links to write off Alvarez. Like, it's such a fair weather comment to make. If you understand the game of baseball, you know how hard it is for catchers to blossom at this young of an age. The fact that Alvarez is in his third season is a miracle at this age, mind you. So regardless of what Alvy has or hasn't done, and the sky is still, without question, the limit for him when it comes to his offense and defensive upside. And now let's go see what Alvy can do for this Mets team again, starting in the lineup tomorrow. Guys and gals, that's going to do it for our latest post-game show. Thank you again all so much for watching. I do greatly appreciate it. And be on the lookout for more New York Metropolitan coverage from your guy, WardyNYM, as we will have a video dropping earlier in the day for you guys. We will have our post-game show later on in the evening per usual. And we will have content pumping out all week long, including a lot of trade-related content from now up until the deadline for obvious reasons. I'm going to go eat one of those lobsters, as JTB in the chat says and wants me to. All jokes aside, though, that's going to do it for your guy, Wardy. Thank you guys again so much for watching. Really do appreciate it. You guys have a fantastic night, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Let's go Mets, baby. Peace out.